nestled against the chill winds of the north, lies the city of Neverwinter, a place as renowned for its beauty as for its tumultuous history. Our tale begins in an age long forgotten, where magic and mystery intertwine. From the ancient struggles against nature's wrath to the machinations of wizards and the steel of warriors, join me as we uncover the storied past of the Jewel of the North. Chapter 1: The Ancient Ice in the Sor Stone. In an era veiled by the mists of antiquity, when Toril was a wilder and more perilous realm, the land itself groaned under the burden of an advancing ice age. Glaciers, colossal and relentless, crept across the landscape, consuming forests and mountains alike, compelling creatures of all kinds to flee or face extinction. Amidst this relentless frost, a race scarcely remembered faced their doom. Their queen, Morag, witnessed the devastation of her world from her throne of ice. Driven by desperation, Morag summoned her most formidable sorcerers and arcanists, entrusting them with a task that bordered on the divine. Their mission was to craft a sanctuary not upon Toril, but beyond it, an escape to another dimension where her people could survive the deadly embrace of the cold. The result of their arcane endeavors was the Sword Stone, a device imbued with unimaginable power, pulsating with the raw essence of untamed magic. The creation of the Sword Stone was a spectacle of sorcery and sacrifice. In a secluded vale, shielded by the last of the frost-clad pines, the arcanists toiled. The air around them cracked with arcane energy. The arcs of blue and silver lightning leapt from the stone to the heavens as the veil between dimensions thinned. Legends tell that the eve of the stone's completion, the skies themselves wept tears of stars, and the ground beneath them trembled in reverence, or perhaps warning. With a convergence of incantations and a final desperate invocation, Morag activated the Sor Stone. A brilliant aurora of ethereal lights danced across the heavens, casting the world in hues of otherworldly splendor. In that singular, defining moment, Morag and her followers stepped through the veil, vanishing from history, leaving behind only the echoes of their exodus and the chilling winds that whispered their names in sibilant tones. The Sor Stone, now dormant, was buried beneath layers of ice and snow, its location obscured by time. Centuries would pass before the stone's whisper would stir the hearts of those destined to uncover its mysteries. But the legacy of Morag and her people lingered, a shadow cast long across the ages, waiting for the thaw that would arrive with the founding of a city. Unbeknownst to its builders, this city was fated to become deeply intertwined with the Sor Stone, Neverwinter, the Jewel of the North. Chapter 2: The Rise of Ilor. Ilor, a kingdom enshrined in elven lore, began in the shadowy depths of history, long before the rise of human empires. As the elves migrated westward across Faerun, seeking solace from the destruction wrought by their own kin in the distant south, they established Ilor in what would one day be known as Delimbir Vale. This kingdom, initially a sanctuary, quickly evolved into a center of elven culture and magic. As the ages passed, Ilor witnessed the birth of powerful elven magics and the construction of architectural marvels that harmonized with the natural beauty of the forest. By -2600 DR, Ilor was already an ancient realm. Having seen the rise and fall of neighboring elven domains, it stood as a witness to the Crown Wars, a devastating series of conflicts among the elven races, which ultimately reshaped the landscape of elven politics in Faerun. During these tumultuous times, Ilor managed to maintain a degree of stability, avoiding the worst of the conflicts. Its rulers forged alliances with emerging human and dwarven states, notably the burgeoning kingdom of Delzalm. This alliance was crucial as both realms faced growing threats from orcs and other dangers emanating from the north. The kingdom of Illifarn began to wane as the elven populations slowly retreated from the wider world, a process that accelerated after the retreat was called in -664 DR. By -110 DR, the elves of Illifarn had mostly departed, leaving behind relics and ruins that whispered of their former glory. The last vestiges of their presence were preserved in the successor state of Ardeep, which lingered on as a shadow of a once great kingdom. Though Illifarn itself had faded by the time Neverwinter began to rise in prominence, its legacy influenced the region profoundly. The magical and cultural remnants of Illifarn shaped the early development of what would become one of the North's most important human cities. Chapter 3: The Founding of Neverwinter. As the era of ancient kingdoms waned and the echoes of elven songs faded into the rustling leaves, a new chapter dawned with the valor of the Sun Elf hero Lord Halloweth Never. In the turbulent year of the Burning Glades, -10 DR, amidst the clash of steel and the roar of battle, Lord Halloweth led the elves of Ilian Bruin in a decisive victory over the city of Ilesk. On the very grounds where his enemies lay fallen, he envisioned a bastion of civilization, a city that would stand as a beacon of hope and prosperity. In the aftermath of victory, the foundations of Castle Never were laid, its imposing stone walls destined to watch over the city that would grow in its shadow. The castle, with its towering spires and formidable battlements, was not just a military stronghold, but a symbol of enduring spirit of those who dared to dream of peace in a land often marred by conflict. As years turned into decades, the area around Castle Never began to draw settlers from far and wide. The settlement, initially known as Igerstor, sprang up, a rough-hewn collection of homes and marketplaces that throbbed with the aspirations of its people. These early settlers, unaware of the ancient magic slumbering beneath their feet, the Sor Stone, were drawn by the promise of new beginnings in an untamed north. By the year of the Hoarfrost, 87 DR, Igerstor had grown beyond a mere frontier outpost. The settlement had become a crucial juncture for trade and diplomacy in the region. It was during this time that the transformative power of names became evident, as Igerstor was renamed Neverwinter, a name that spoke of its unusual warm climate, shielded as it was by magical hot springs that prevented the rivers from freezing, even in the harshest of winters. However, as with all great tales, Neverwinter soon found itself a beacon in the dark, attracting not only those who sought peace, but also those who craved power. As Neverwinter grew into a mighty city, it also stirred the shadows of envy and greed. Chapter 4: The Orc Invasions and the Dragon's Guard. As Neverwinter grew from a fledgling settlement into a burgeoning city, its prosperity did not go unnoticed. The untamed lands of the north were home to various threats, but none were as persistent and formidable as the orc hordes. These brutal invasions tested the mettle of Neverwinter, forging its identity in the crucible of conflict. In the year of the Fanged Horde, 306 DR, a massive army of orcs descended upon Neverwinter. These were no ordinary marauders. They were driven by a fierce desire to pillage and conquer, spurred on by a charismatic and ruthless warlord, Grumsh One-Eye. The city's defenses were formidable, yet the sheer number of attackers threatened to overwhelm them. As the siege dragged on, hope began to dwindle. That was until a miraculous turn of events. Palaran Dusk, known as the Unseen Protector, a gold dragon of immense power and wisdom, chose to reveal himself. He had watched over the city in secret for decades, his presence unknown to the citizens he guarded. With fiery breath and fearsome might, Palaran Dusk drove back the orcs, searing their ranks and breaking the siege. His intervention was a turning point, not only for the battle, but for the city's history, embedding him forever in the lore of Neverwinter. In the aftermath of the attack, Neverwinter's leaders took no chances with their city's security. Fortifications were strengthened, and alliances were sought with neighboring realms. Polarindusk's visible presence became a symbol of the city's resilience, attracting traders, settlers, and adventurers who felt safer under the dragon's watchful eye. The year of the Normir, 611 DR, brought with it another grave challenge, a new orc warlord. Inspired by legends of the riches and weaknesses of human cities, amassed a large orc horde larger than ever seen before. This time, Neverwinter was better prepared. The city's walls, reinforced by magic and steel, held firm against the onslaught, and once again, Polarindusk emerged from his lair beneath the city. The battle was fierce, and the losses were heavy, but under the dragon's fiery wings, the city withstood the siege. The orcs were repelled with great losses to their numbers, and their warlord was slain. This defeat discouraged further large-scale attacks for many generations, marking a period of relative peace for Neverwinter. Polarindusk's role as the guardian of Neverwinter became legendary. The dragon did not only offer protection, but also wisdom, aiding in the planning of the city's expansions and defenses. However, legends tell that before the turn of the century, a group of bold adventurers, driven by greed and tales of the dragon's horde, managed to find Polarindusk's lair. The confrontation that ensued forced the gold dragon to flee, leaving the city he had protected for so long. The departure of Polarindusk marks the end of an era, but his memory and the spirit of resilience he instilled in the city's people endures to this day. Chapter 5: The Threat from Thay. As Neverwinter thrived as a bustling city of commerce and culture, its success drew the attention of various external powers, including the ambitious Red Wizards of Thay. Known for their mastery of the arcane and political machinations, the Red Wizards' interest in Neverwinter was driven by the city's strategic significance and its rich magical resources. Over a period, the Red Wizards gradually extended their influence in the region known for its magical significance, including the area around Neverwinter. They established enclaves and subtly manipulated trade and politics to suit their ends. The Thayans' method included infiltration of magical academies, manipulation of trade agreements, and occasionally direct intimidation through displays of arcane power. Relations between Neverwinter and Thay became strained when Thayan espionage activities were uncovered. These revelations led to discreet confrontations aimed at rooting out spies and safeguarding the city's secrets. Leaders of Neverwinter were compelled to navigate these tensions delicately to prevent overt conflicts while ensuring the city's security. In response to the Thayan threat, Neverwinter sought the assistance of the Harpers, a secret organization dedicated to promoting good and preserving knowledge, providing critical support in intelligence gathering and counter-espionage, helping to neutralize Thayan agents and protect Neverwinter's magical heritage. Although the immediate threat from the Red Wizards was mitigated, the city remained vigilant. The experience underscored the need for ongoing caution and preparedness against potential threats, both arcane and political. The episodes of Thayan intrigue left a lasting impact on Neverwinter, shaping its approach to magical security and foreign relations. The city emerged with strengthened defenses and a network of alliances that bolstered its resilience against future threats. Chapter 6: The Siege of Shadows. As Neverwinter emerged stronger and more resilient from its past trials, it found itself facing a new, insidious threat that would test its spirits once more. In the year of lightning storms, 1374 DR, the city became a battleground of the Shadow War, a conflict steeped in darkness. The conflict began with the rise of the King of Shadows, a malevolent entity born from the remnants of a bygone era's magical catastrophe. This being sought to extend its dark influence across Faerun, starting with the strategic location of magical power, of which Neverwinter was key due to its rich history and its proximity to the ancient and powerful Sor Stone. The first signs of the looming threat were subtle, shadows that moved against the wind, whispers in the dark, and the palpable sense of dread that settled over the city. It wasn't long before these shadows took form, attacking key defensive points and sowing chaos. The city's mages and scholars scrambled to understand and counter these spectral threats, but their efforts were initially met with limited success. Amidst the rising panic, Lord Nashar Elegandar, the ruler of Neverwinter at the time, proved to be a pillar of strength. He rallied the city's defenders, calling upon the heroes of Neverwinter and beyond to aid in the city's defense. His leadership inspired confidence and unity amongst the populace, who were all too familiar with the need to stand together against common foes. The conflict reached its zenith with the Battle of Highcliffe, where the forces of Neverwinter faced the armies of the King of Shadows in direct confrontation. The battle was fierce and fraught with magical anomalies, as the King of Shadows used his power to warp reality, turning the battlefield into a nightmarish landscape. Key to the city's survival were the efforts of a small group of adventurers, drawn to Neverwinter by fate or fortune. These unlikely heroes uncovered the secret to the King of Shadows' power, his connection to the Sword Stone. By forging alliances with ancient powers and utilizing lost artifacts, they devised a plan to sever the king's connection to the stone, thereby weakening him significantly. The climax of the Shadow War came as these adventurers, supported by the armies of Neverwinter and its allies, confronted the King of Shadows in his stronghold. The battle was perilous, with losses on both sides, but the adventurers managed to shatter the Sor Stone, dispersing the king's essence and banishing the shadows that had terrorized the city. In the aftermath of the war, Neverwinter faced the task of rebuilding once again, this time with a deeper understanding of the dangers lurking in the shadows of the world. The Siege of Shadows left a lasting impact on Neverwinter, highlighting the city's vulnerabilities to magical threats and the importance of vigilance. It also underscored the value of heroes and adventures in shaping the city's destiny, a theme that would resonate in the tales told in taverns across the north for generations. Chapter 7: The Ruining and Rebirth. The tranquility that Neverwinter had achieved after centuries of turmoil was shattered in the year of knowledge unearthed, 1451 DR, when an event known simply as the Ruining plunged the city into chaos. This cataclysm was not wrought by armies or the arcane, but by the very earth itself, stirred into fury by forces long forgotten. Beneath the city lay Majira, the Inferno, a primordial being of fire and destruction, bound in ancient times by the dwarves of Gultagrim. Unbeknownst to the citizens above, the reckless expedition led by powerful adventurers driven by greed had penetrated the depths of Gultagrim, seeking treasures and artifacts. Their intrusion awoke Majira, who unleashed the fiery rage that had been simmering for millennia. The awakening resulted in a massive eruption of Mount Hottenau, located just northeast of Neverwinter. The mountain's explosion sent a catastrophic mix of ash, lava, and fiery debris raining down on the city. Buildings were incinerated, streets were torn apart, and the landscape was forever altered. The death toll was staggering, and the city that had stood as a beacon of civilization in the north was reduced to smoldering ruins. One of the most devastating aftermaths of the eruption was the creation of the chasm, a vast rift that split the southeastern part of Neverwinter. From this fissure, strange and deadly creatures began to emerge, along with noxious gases that poisoned the air. The chasm became a symbol of Neverwinter's great wound, a physical and metaphorical gap that seemed insurmountable. In the wake of the disaster, the resilience of the people of Neverwinter was put to the ultimate test. The initial response was scattered and desperate, but from the ashes rose leaders and heroes who organized a reconstruction. They rallied the survivors, secured aid from neighboring cities and powerful factions, and began the slow process of rebuilding. Despite the scale of the disaster, the spirit of Neverwinter endured. The city's strategic location and the indomitable will of its people attracted new waves of settlers, adventurers, and merchants eager to contribute to the rebirth. The story of Neverwinter's fall and rise became a tale told across Faerun, inspiring songs, stories, and legends. The ruining of Neverwinter is remembered not just as a time of loss and despair, but as a defining moment of courage, unity, and resilience. It underscored the city's importance in the north and demonstrated the strength of its community. Neverwinter was reborn, but not just as a city of wealth and trade, but as a symbol of survival and renewal. Chapter 8: The Rebuilding and Resurgence. The cataclysm known as the Ruining in 1451 DR marked a turning point for Neverwinter. The aftermath demanded not just recovery, but a complete reimagining of the city. The first priority was to stabilize the city's infrastructure. Engineers from the Lord's Alliance were brought in to address the structural damages. The city's aqueducts and sewer system, critical for the sanitation and water supply, were among the first to be rebuilt using advanced engineering techniques learned from the Dwarven allies. This not only restored essential services, but also improved them to prevent future disasters. The heart of Neverwinter, the Protector's Enclave, was redesigned to serve not only as a political center, but as a symbol of the city's resilience. A new citadel was constructed, featuring reinforced magical defenses capable of withstanding both arcane and physical attacks. To revitalize its economy, Neverwinter launched several key initiatives. The Silver Galleon Festival, an annual trade fair that invited merchants from across Faerun, revitalizing local businesses and attracting foreign investors. The Neverwinter Exchange, a mercantile hub established to facilitate easier trade practices and economic policies that encourage startups and foreign trade offices, particularly focusing on magical artifacts and technology. With the threat of future attacks and natural disasters a clear and present concern, Neverwinter's leaders invested heavily in the city's defenses. The Ward Towers. A series of towers were constructed around the city's perimeter, equipped with scrying stones and enchanted alarms to detect threats from afar. The Knights of the Gilded Eye, a new order of paladins and clerics dedicated to Helm. It was founded to maintain peace and order within the city, as well as to guard against supernatural threats. Beyond the economic and structural developments, Neverwinter experienced a cultural renaissance. The Neverwinter Opera House, rebuilt grander than ever before, it became a venue not only for traditional performances, but also celebrating heroic tales from the ruining, often featuring magic-infused special effects to dazzle audiences. The Museum of Ancient Wonders. This museum was established to preserve and display artifacts recovered from ruins and new archaeological digs, educating the public about Neverwinter's history and resilience. The city's comprehensive recovery efforts were underpinned by a strong communal spirit and a forward-looking governance approach. the Governing Council established the Neverwinter Resilience Office, tasked with future-proofing the city against potential disasters and ensuring the continuity of civic operation. As Neverwinter moved beyond mere recovery into a phase of thriving innovation, it has set new standards for city planning and disaster management in Faerun. The rebuilding era not only restored its physical structure and economy, but also reshaped its identity into a symbol of hope and endurance for all. The tale of Neverwinter's resurgence continues to inspire, serving as a reminder of what can be achieved with unity and determination.